This is a special bonus episode for you. Got a lot to talk about this week, and we've been talking a lot about the Buckeyes, but I want to let you hear a little bit from the Tennessee side of things. Got a chance to hear from Tennessee's defensive and offensive coordinators earlier in the week. They had some interesting stuff to say, so we're going to let you hear a little bit directly from them today. We're going to start with defensive coordinator Tim Banks. He actually is pretty familiar with not only Ohio State, but the Ryan Day offense at Ohio State. He was a Penn State defensive assistant from 2016 to 2020. Now is the defensive coordinator, of course, at Tennessee. So here we go with Tim Banks. Let's start with an easy one. What stands out about the Ohio State offense?
Yeah, I think it's the skill. They got really good skill. Traditionally, they've always had really good wideouts. Schematically, they put you in a lot of situations to try to put stress on the defense. So, they got good coaches, good players. They're an Ohio State team. Some of the teams I've seen in the past, they're very similar to that.
Here's one of these questions that gets asked and everyone goes, oh, that's a good question. And then they never want to answer it. But here you go. What did Michigan do to slow down the Buckeye offense? And how can Tennessee try to take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think it's just like anything. It's a rivalry game. Those guys, play extremely hard against each other. And, Michigan did a lot of good things. But, for us, we look at those guys, just like I said, a lot of great skill from the running backs to the receivers. And, obviously they got a lot of pride up front, how they go about their business. So, I just think anytime you play in a rivalry game, anything can happen. And, obviously Michigan was very fortunate that day.
Since Tim Banks got to Tennessee in 2021, what has he seen that has made him realize that it was possible to get the program from where it was, which was kind of lost and in the wilderness for a couple of decades, to now back in the college football playoff?
You saying us as a program, the success we've had? Yeah, the fan base, I think it starts there. They're very passionate, about the University of Tennessee, and rightfully so. It's a lot of, truth to this program in terms of what they've done in the past. And, we felt like, given the right, environment, you can have a chance to be very, very successful. So I think it just starts with the guys we've been able to recruit, the guys we've been able to keep here in the program, and again, just the fan base. So, we've been very fortunate, to be able to win a lot of games here. And I think, again, it just starts with the passion the fans have, the way we play at Neyland Stadium, because of the energy those guys bring, week in and week out has been very exciting, to say the least. So I just think this is a very passionate fan base, a very passionate university that wants to win. And, we're just, extremely grateful to be a part of it.
A lot of the conversation around the Ohio State offense centered around the wide receivers. Not really a surprise if you're familiar with the Ohio State wide receivers. But what kind of stress does Ohio State wide receiver corps put on the Tennessee secondary?
Yeah, I think it'll be a great challenge, for our guys. The way they run the ball, to set up the play action pass and things of that nature, we're going to have to do a really good job of, obviously helping our guys on the back end. But, our DNA is, we want to be able to stop the run. So, yeah, it's going to be a great challenge. Our guys are eager for that challenge. They worked this whole season, to be in these type of venues and have these type of opportunities. So they'll be very excited for it.
Tennessee's leading tackler this year is linebacker Arian Carter. He wears number 7, so you can watch for him on Saturday. Leading tackler on the team this year. And, so you'll hear Banks answering the question about how Arian Carter has grown. You're also going to hear him mention KP, that is Keenan Peely. He was a starting linebacker until he hurt his knee earlier in the season and now is out for the year.
Yeah, I think, losing KP early, in the year, was devastating for all of us. But I thought, the way those guys have stepped up, AC included, from a verbal perspective, being a lot more vocal with, what's going on in terms of our play calling. So I just think the leadership, I know he's always had it in him. He's kind of forced into it when we lost KP, but, he's definitely stepped up his game as far as leadership.
If you listen to Tony Gerdeman and I break down some of the Tennessee games that we've watched, you've heard us talk a lot about their cornerbacks. Jermod McCoy, he wears number 3, and Ricky Gibson, he wears number 1. Those two guys get put on islands a lot in this Tim Banks defense. So how much trust does Banks have in them going into this game?
Yeah, we have a lot of trust in those guys. Obviously you breed confidence, by your play. Those guys have played extremely well all year. So, anytime you got good corners, it takes some stress off other positions and allows us to do different things, schematically. But we're going to need everybody. We're going to need the corners. We're going to need, obviously, the front, the linebackers, to be successful in this game. So, like I said earlier, having those guys on those edges is definitely a help sake for us.
There's been a lot of talk around the Ohio State program about the fact that they're not rotating their defensive linemen enough. Tennessee, they rotate their defensive linemen a ton. 11 guys on the defensive line have at least 100 snaps this season, only 8 on the Ohio State defensive line, just for comparison. So how has that helped keep guys fresh and maybe ready for this game?
Yeah, I don't know if we can say fresh, but it's definitely, great to have that many, and be able to rotate those guys, as much as we have has been awesome. And we're going to need them all, to be successful this weekend. So I think when you build the defense, you always want to build it from the front to the back, and obviously on the perimeter, and we've been very blessed to have enough depth up front to be able to rotate those guys and still keep the standard to standard.
Before the year, Banks set improvement in the red zone as a goal for the Volunteers team. Last year, they were 88th nationally in terms of allowing points on 85.4% of opponent red zone trips. This year, they've gone from 88th nationally to 11th in the country. So what has helped Tennessee make that big of a jump?
Yeah, I just think they play with a lot of confidence. We play a lot of guys up front, so I think we're fresh, particularly in those moments. I think a lot of it has to do with the back end and, high level those guys are playing at. But yeah, we've obviously concentrated on it coming into the season. And, just like anything, you love to see the fruits of your labor, and those guys work really hard at it. And it's great to see those guys have played well at it.
Mentioned a minute ago that Tennessee is 11th in the country, allowing points on 73.5% of red zone trips. The Buckeyes, just for comparison, they are first nationally, just 55.2% of opponent red zone trips ending in points this year. So, all right, on to the last question for Banks. Are they trying to treat this week just like any other? Or are they trying to ramp things up knowing that this is going to be the biggest game they play all season? What's the approach there?
Yeah, I mean, our routine is our routine. The way we get ready, our process, so to speak, is our process. So the kids are always excited, to play the game. And I think that's what I love about this team. They just want to play. They want to put the ball down and have an opportunity. And hopefully we'll get 4 opportunities at this thing. It starts with, Ohio State this weekend. And, it's going to be a great challenge for us. But just the way those guys have approached this game has been, very consistent in who we've been all year.
Now on to the offensive side of the ball, and Joey Halzle, the offensive coordinator. He was with Josh Heupel at UCF and then came with him to Tennessee, first as a quarterback coach and then as an offensive coordinator starting last year. Let's start with the quarterback then, Nico Iamaleava. How has he improved with getting through his progressions and reading the defense as he's gone through his first full season as a starter?
Just for any young quarterback, just getting unscouted looks each and every week, he's reacting to them quicker and quicker as it's going on. I think that's why you've seen on this back half of the season, he's completing passes at almost a 70% clip, hitting a bunch of big plays down the field. He's made a bunch of huge plays for us in these last couple games that we needed to get going and to go get in this playoff right here. So his attention to detail has never wavered. It's been the same since preseason into season. There's just nothing like game reps. There's just absolutely nothing like it. You can try to create it as much as you want, as much scrimmage, but man, it's just a different animal when there's live bullets going out there and you're getting completely different looks, and you got the play clock and you got everything going like that. So just him settling into all that, it's been really cool to see, and really bright future for him. So we're excited about that.
Another young player to watch is true freshman wide receiver Mike Matthews. He really didn't do a whole heck of a lot early in the season, but really started to come along later on in the year. And then when they suffered a couple injuries in the wide receiver core against Vanderbilt, he stepped up, caught a touchdown pass, nearly had another one. So is he in line to contribute in the playoff?
No, we fully intend on Mike being a big part of everything we're doing. It's the same thing now. Like, if this goes the way you want it to go, you got 4 games left. You got a quarter of a season left to play right here. All those guys that are here and that are going, we expect them to play at a high level. We feel comfortable throwing anybody out there. Our guys are prepared, they're ready to play, and they're dang good players. So anybody that's called upon, we expect that they go out and they play at a high level, and we expect to see that here every week.
Nico Iamaleava has grown quite a bit just over the last month or so, which is normal for a first-year starting quarterback to kind of step up and take on a bigger role later in his first season. But, going back to the Georgia game, how did that happen?
I think the way he was able to get to that is he doesn't blink. You know what I mean? And I said that from the very beginning. The kid's got a very even heart rate. But, man, his decision-making, and more than anything, his getting rid of the first read into the second, into the third, like he was getting all the way through stuff really quickly. That's why you were seeing, like you brought up the Georgia game, early in that game, like we're going 1, 2, 3, and that guy's getting the ball out and we're hitting big plays all over the field. So you're just seeing him being able to make his decision making, which was always good. He's even taking it to a higher level. So we're looking forward for that to keep growing for him.
One example of Iamaleava and the Tennessee offense not flinching at a potentially bad situation. They were down 14-0 just 5 minutes in against Vanderbilt, and they got the ball, and what took the offense right down the field for a touchdown, completely turned the game around. Is that the kind of thing that he's talking about?
100%. And for him and really the whole offense, like we got the ball for the first time. Not the first time, we had 2 snaps and we had the turnover. But so our 3rd snap of the game, it's 14-0. And I asked on the headset, because I'm up top, I said, how do we look down there? And to a man, every coach was like, we're good. Like nobody's blinking, nobody's worried. They all know what's about to happen. And we go down, drive, score, get a stop, score, and then roll from there. So that drive was huge. And what I loved about what he did in that drive is he didn't, fall into himself. He didn't start, I don't want to mess anything up. I don't want to have anything bad happen because something bad has already happened. Like, nope, that's the ball there. I got Tay, and I'm driving this thing down the field for a touchdown. So exactly right. That was a very good representation of where we're at as an offense and where he's at as a quarterback.
Ohio State's defense is at the very top of the list nationally in just about every significant category. But, the numbers are great. But what do you actually see with the defense when you turn on the film?
Yeah, you got starters. You got really good players across the board. They roll out there. They play extremely aggressive brand of defense. They pressure a bunch. They'll press their corners. They'll press their safeties, their nickel. They let their defensive linemen change up their rush techniques. Like everything they do is designed to try to create negatives and to try to take the will of an offense. So they present a very unique challenge. They're a really good defense. That's why, as you said, their numbers are at the top, if not the top of every defensive category right there. It's a unique challenge. We feel like our guys are ready for it, and they're looking forward to what that challenge is going to be on Saturday night.
We've talked in the past about Ohio State liking to use 12 personnel in certain circumstances on offense, 12 personnel being 1 running back and 2 tight ends. So when Tennessee does that, what does that bring both in the throw and the run game?
Yeah, it's a bunch, and like you said, in the passing game too, created a bunch of individual matchups for us out wide in the 12 personnel passing game, and when people were playing wide, it created big holes inside. So it's been a really, really good addition for us. The tight end room led us to be able to do that. We had some really good players in there, and I think there's a lot of times like when you get big, it's to run the ball, but you get big and you got those wideouts out there that can run the way our guys can. It creates one-on-ones, and we've had a bunch of big explosive plays in the 12 personnel passing game. So it's been a huge addition to what we did. It was something we knew we wanted to grow starting in February, and we committed to it, and we're seeing the fruits of that here in the season.
Tennessee expecting to face a hostile crowd this weekend in Columbus. Now, when you're trying to make a 3rd down play call, and you're really trying to make sure the players get it right, and everyone's on the same page because you don't want to have a miscommunication on 3rd down, but also it's a loud, hostile crowd, and it's only going to get louder and more hostile as that play clock winds down and they have more time to yell and scream and cheer. How do you balance getting it right with not giving the crowd extra time? Yeah,
it's like you said, it's what is the actual situation that's going on right here. Like, are you in a good situation, bad situation? What's the momentum? What's the feel of the game? The most important thing, people talk about our tempo and all that stuff, is running good, efficient football plays. Like is what it is. That's what it comes down to. And if we have to sacrifice the tempo to get everything communicated, get on the same page, we'll do that. If we can play with our tempo, we'll do that. If we want to sub and move bodies around to get people in the right spot to try to create an advantageous matchup, we'll do that. So there's not really one way to do this thing. And especially when you go, like you said, into a hostile environment, the most important thing is always going to be running good football plays efficiently. And then everything else takes a backseat to that.
And finally, the Buckeyes. That defense looks pretty menacing on the stat sheet. They've put up 35 sacks this year, a lot from the defensive line, in particular from the edge positions. So how is the Ohio State defensive line going to stress Tennessee's tackles and even quarterback Nico Iamaleava?
Yeah, it's picking your times to push it down the field without being reckless about it. They try to talk you out of pushing the ball down the field. They try to talk you out of playing aggressively. So we have to not allow that to be something that we're saying we're going to go play in a box now. But like I said from the very beginning, they got really good players and they let them turn loose and they go play them. That's the challenge with these guys. So our tackles know, our quarterbacks know, our whole offense knows what this is going to be on Saturday night. It's going to be a fight for 60 minutes. But we're looking forward to that opportunity and a chance to mix it up with these guys.
So there you go. Now you know a little bit more from both of Tennessee's coordinators. Just thought that was a little bit of an interesting perspective. I'll try and get you another Josh Heupel show later on in the week as well. We'll have another Ryan Day interview coming up at noon on Wednesday. Tony Gerderman and I will have a live instant reaction show after that. And of course, we'll have plenty more coming up in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed as well. We have to still talk about what Ohio State needs to do to win the game. We'll have our bold prediction show. We'll have our game preview in that feed. We'll have plenty more coming up for you on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning feed as well. And that'll all be also at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Make sure you are subscribed there. There's going to be a ton of content coming for you all week long, plus pregame show, plus postgame show. And then after the game, oh boy, there are going to be two paths that diverge. One of them is going to be a very happy group of Buckeyes going to California for the Rose Bowl. The other half is going to be a very unhappy group of Buckeyes starting a very long off season. Which one will it be? Either way, there is going to be a lot to talk about at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.